Have you ever wondered how something can move through government, courts, or corporations for years and still feel unresolved? It's not necessarily about hidden secrets or grand conspiracies, but often about the sheer scale of the institutions involved, the cautious pace of official communication, and the fragmented way information is revealed. What starts as a singular event can ripple outward, touching layers of bureaucracy, legal precedent, and regulatory language, each step adding to a public record that clarifies some aspects while simultaneously revealing how much remains procedurally undefined. Today, we're going to slowly unpack one of the most publicly discussed processes in the United States, and yet one that remains procedurally difficult to trace. We'll explore the events surrounding the Boeing 737 MAX, specifically focusing not just on the accidents themselves, but on the enduring institutional responses, the evolution of official explanations, and the protracted nature of oversight and reform in a highly regulated industry. The story, in its broadest strokes, entered widespread public consciousness with two catastrophic accidents: Lion Air Flight 610 in October 2018 and Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 in March 2019. Both involved Boeing's then new 737 MAX aircraft. The immediate aftermath was characterized by intense, global scrutiny. Initial reports from accident investigators, particularly the Indonesian National Transportation Safety Committee and the Ethiopian Accident Investigation Bureau, pointed to a common factor: the aircraft's Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System, or MCAS. This system, designed to prevent stalls, was implicated in repeatedly forcing the aircraft's nose down, leading to a loss of control. The public, and indeed the aviation world, quickly sought to understand how such a system could be present in a certified aircraft. Boeing, as the manufacturer, and the Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, as the primary certifying authority in the United States, were immediately thrust into the center of a procedural whirlwind. Early statements from Boeing focused on its commitment to safety and cooperation with investigations. The FAA initially affirmed the aircraft's airworthiness, but soon faced increasing pressure, both domestically and internationally. On March 13, 2019, the FAA issued an emergency order grounding all Boeing 737 MAX aircraft in U.S. airspace, a significant regulatory action that underlined the severity of the emerging concerns. This grounding, while a decisive step, was just the beginning of a long, convoluted procedural journey. The focus, almost immediately, began to shift from solely the MCAS system to the process by which the 737 MAX had been certified for flight. Congressional committees, notably the House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure, initiated their own inquiries. These hearings began to introduce highly technical, often dense, regulatory terminology into the public discourse. Terms like Organization Designation Authorization, or ODA, became central. The ODA program allows the FAA to delegate certain certification tasks to the manufacturers themselves, using designated company employees to act on the FAA's behalf. This procedural mechanism, designed to streamline certification, now became a point of intense public and governmental scrutiny. Official communications from the FAA and Boeing became increasingly layered. While Boeing continued to express regret and commitment to software updates, the FAA began a comprehensive review of its own certification processes. The NTSB, or National Transportation Safety Board, also initiated investigations, distinct from the regulatory role of the FAA. The Department of Justice, or DOJ, also opened a criminal investigation, adding another complex legal layer to the unfolding institutional response. Each agency, with its distinct mandate and procedural requirements, began generating its own documents, statements, and findings, contributing to a fragmented, multifaceted public record. Mid-Minus 2019 saw a series of congressional hearings that offered moments where the public almost received clarity, yet each moment revealed further procedural gaps. FAA officials, under questioning, acknowledged concerns about the ODA program and its effectiveness, but often deferred specific answers to ongoing internal reviews. Boeing executives, in their testimonies, spoke of internal process improvements and cultural shifts, but the underlying questions about the original certification, the information flow between the company and the regulator, and the specific decision-making trees remained elusive within the public domain. These hearings, while providing official acknowledgments of deficiencies, served to highlight the sheer scope of the procedural investigation still underway. A critical document in this evolving narrative was the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee's comprehensive report, published in September 2020. This report, the culmination of 18 months of investigation, detailed a cascading series of failures involving both Boeing and the FAA. It presented findings that pointed to immense pressure on Boeing employees involved in the ODA program and an insufficient oversight by the FAA. The report offered detailed recommendations for legislative and regulatory reform. This was a significant step toward clarity, meticulously outlining what went wrong procedurally. Yet the implementation of its recommendations, the specific legislative changes, and the full extent of the FAA's internal reforms remained, by necessity, future procedural undertakings, still in their early stages. The report identified the problems but did not, and could not, fully detail the process of resolution. Then came the Deferred Prosecution Agreement, or DPA, between Boeing and the Department of Justice in January 2021. This was a major legal development, representing a formal conclusion to the criminal investigation. The DPA included a financial penalty and acknowledged that certain Boeing employees had misled the FAA. It outlined specific criminal conduct, bringing a form of legal accountability. For a moment, it felt like a definitive answer. However, while the DPA provided a legal resolution regarding past conduct, it didn't fully articulate the ongoing institutional reforms or the procedural changes within the FAA. It was a legal document designed to resolve a criminal charge, not a comprehensive roadmap for regulatory transformation. The public, absorbing this major filing, was left to piece together its implications for the broader picture of institutional safety and oversight. The FAA, concurrently with these other investigations, was engaged in its own arduous recertification process for the 737 MAX. This involved hundreds of thousands of engineering hours, multiple flight tests, independent reviews, and the development of new pilot training protocols. Each step of this recertification, from the publication of proposed airworthiness directives to the final ungrounding order in November 2020, was a complex procedural milestone. The FAA, in its official statements, continually emphasized the rigor of this process, underscoring its commitment to ensuring safety. Yet, even this detailed recertification, while addressing the immediate safety concerns, served as a stark reminder of the original procedural lapses that allowed the aircraft to be certified with the identified deficiencies in the first place. The families of the victims, through their persistent advocacy and legal actions, also played a crucial role in shaping the ongoing public discourse and demanding continued institutional accountability. Their statements, court filings, and appearances before Congress brought a human dimension to the technical and procedural discussions, ensuring that the consequences of institutional processes remained at the forefront. Each legal challenge or public statement from these families added another layer to the multi-threaded narrative, often pressing for more transparency than official channels had yet provided. U.S. institutional processes are, by their nature, multi-layered. When a complex event occurs, agencies like the NTSB investigate to determine the probable cause and issue safety recommendations. The FAA, as the regulator, responds with airworthiness directives or policy changes. Congress exercises oversight through hearings and legislative proposals, and the Department of Justice pursues legal accountability where criminal conduct is suspected. This case, however, felt unusually slow and fragmented because of the sheer technical complexity, the global reach of the industry, and the intricate dance between corporate responsibility and governmental oversight, all playing out across multiple, independent investigatory and legal tracks. Information emerged in disparate forms: accident reports, congressional testimonies, internal FAA reviews, corporate press releases, legal filings, and international regulatory statements. Each provided a piece of the puzzle, but never the whole. Even today, years after the accidents and the initial grounding, the procedural story continues to evolve. The legislative changes proposed by Congress have moved through the system. The FAA continues to implement internal reforms to its ODA program. Boeing itself continues to navigate its own internal process improvements and public relations challenges. The full impact of these reforms, how they are being measured, and their long-term efficacy are ongoing questions that reside within the slow, deliberate machinery of institutional change. The public record is vast, yet connecting every step, every decision, every acknowledgement into a single, cohesive procedural narrative remains a task of continuous reconstruction. Maybe that's what makes these stories worth returning to. We'll continue exploring them together. I'll see you in the next video.